In our industry, GovCon and program management are practically synonymous, but truly exceptional program management is so much more than the myriad of benchmark practices, maturity models, and budget forecasts. Today, we're sitting down with Jenn Crawford, program manager for TIAG, to talk about how program management can unite clients and teams, create a vision for success, and reverberate far beyond program delivery and project execution. Hey, Jenn.
Hi.
Thanks for being here today.
Thank you for the opportunity.
When you get certified or trained in program management, it's all about execution, documentation, communication, financials, all of the technicalities. But that doesn't take into the people side of program management. Why? What do you think contributes to that?
And focus on the deliverable is super important. And every metric that built into program management is necessary to help you get to that level. But it's important to remember that those are all top line numbers, right? Any of the metrics are intended to be easily digestible. They read well on a slide in a briefing. You can rack and stack programs and say who's on the top and who's on the bottom. You can easily chart improvement. But in terms of where you're investing your time and your energy, everything that you're monitoring and tracking, is it really enough to be successful with just those indices?
And the intent, again, is that superb deliverable. So, you have all those pieces, but you can't take out the people component and think it's still going to be superb. So what risks do we run into when we're not taking the people?
Absolutely. And if you think of a standard metric, like customer satisfaction, right? Every program manager will say that's an important portion of how you put things together. If you look at really what it is, trying to understand your customer deeply, having an intimate connection, being able to anticipate their needs and understand what they're not saying, what they are saying, what they really need, and come up with a solution for that. It's not any different than how you can approach teams and team members to make sure that you have a good, solid foundation on who they are, what they need, and how to best plug into their talents.
This seems like a cultural value, not just a program management strategy. How can we execute on customer requirements, deliverables, comply, and also care about the person behind that?
Absolutely. And I think foremost and foundationally, we focus on authenticity, right? I bring my full self to work on a daily basis. I don't have a work Jen, I don't have a play Jen, I just have a Jen that I bring on a regular basis. And from there, it is establishing a trust with the individuals that we work with to ensure that they get to be authentic, that this is a safe space for them, that when they raise concerns or they have questions or there are things that they need to have addressed, that we take them seriously, we respond to them, and we're able to communicate on a regular basis and stay in pattern with each other.
Which is super important because risk and issue management is inherent in every day and every piece of every program. So much so that we tend to flip risks or issues as opportunities, right? It's, we're taking what would be inherently something very stressful and just trying to put on a face or a facade that is just that is what it is. It's just the job. But you have found that kind of layer is what it is not helpful in building healthy teams and really engaged individuals.
And the intention with risk management is to be able to understand your environment, to control it and influence to the best of your ability. That's how you end up with those opportunities, or at the very least mitigating situations that could be difficult to get through. People have that same dynamic on a program, right? You can have the most technically advanced individual, but if they don't feel safe to communicate, if they don't feel like it's a good space to help innovate, if they don't feel plugged in and aligned with their project, you're not going to get truly exceptional work out of them. You will waste a good deal of the energy and the time that you sought to get that talent in on your contract because they're not working to their full ability.
You're talking empathy now to really understand there's this chronic stress that's created around program management that's inherent, but you're saying we're not going to ignore the fact that there is stress and there are issues and there are risks and that we're asking people to continually address them. You want to really understand.
And impact and influence where you can, right? We get into a struggle with accepting the status quo and saying that this is how things are, and it is difficult and it is stressful and it is the same thing on a day-to-day basis. But what do you really net from that? nothing other than indifference and a little bit of energy that you're not pouring into coming up with a solution for your team. That's not the environment that's going to foster innovation, that's going to allow continuous improvement. In order to move forward and do so purposefully and with energy, you really have to be prepared to look at those concerns, address the root cause, and provide a better situation for individuals, for teams, for the customer, for the project as a whole.
Which sounds great, but the reality is most programs and projects, there's not a ton of extra time built in. This sounds like this is going to take a lot more time, effort, and energy. I think people hearing are like, that sounds ideal.
Ideal, yeah.
Yeah, so great, but...
Well, and I wouldn't argue that the initial investment can be quite intense, particularly if you are not accustomed to getting close to your teammates, if you're not accustomed to having deep discussions, if you're not ready or willing to get into any kind of personal space. But the net of it, the benefit of it, you won't see in the first couple conversations. You'll see when a problem arises that requires immediate action that could be damaging to customer or product. And then, not magically, but through the work and the effort and the time and commitment, you will have a solution in place. You know what your team is expert at. You know who's looking for a new opportunity and who wants to grow. You know who has certain skill sets that will match up with each of the things that will come up in front of you, and it allows a team to pivot quickly, to solve problems before they grow, to address things and allow them to improve instead of get worse.
And this is something that is not just theory for you and your teams. You put it into practice in usually extremely hard situations where people they're coming to you saying, I found a new opportunity.
It runs the gamut. It definitely does. It's much easier, and we're still getting up to, the entire team is still getting up to speed on how this process works and where we are in our levels of trust and how open they are to bring issues forward. It's definitely easier when people come and they say, I'm just not, feeling fully utilized, or I'm tired of solving the same problems, or...
But most people aren't going to do that. They're going to come when they're completely burnt out.
And then they'll come and say, I found a new opportunity. This is the timeline associated with that. And again, everyone, new opportunities, fantastic, great. But allow me to find you something like that within the construct of our program, within our team, where you don't have to put any risk on the line, where you can legitimately just take a new opportunity and continue in the environment that you know. And if it's the environment that you know that's the problem, let's legitimately sit down and talk about, does your team need resources? Are they feeling like they can't make progress? Do you need a stronger customer interface? Do you feel like your deliverable and your requirements are changing on a regular basis? Where is the true source of that frustration? Does the team dynamic need work? Are people not communicating openly, honestly, quickly, and being responsive when you have a need? All of those things can be fine-tuned.
If you are given the opportunity,
yep. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you've built the relationship to create a safe space.
And they trust that when they bring something forward, that you will address it appropriately.
You don't just give, a blanket statement.
Hard.
Yeah.
Sorry you're having a bad day. Yeah, she is.
Just is what it is. It's just the government, That doesn't fly to create
It doesn't
a conversation.
Build anything, right?
Yeah.
At the very least, it's indifference. It's just going to continue to either cause irritation or be overlooked and cause disengagement.
And no one likes to be dismissed, especially when they're thought leaders and they're highly sought talent and just people.
Right? It's not a slow team. Everyone's highly intelligent. They're fast. They're thinking. What they think and feel, regardless of how you want to respond to it, is important to them.
This has created just incredible impacts throughout the organization, this approach. I know there's not a, manual for it, but 2 or 3 things that people listening, organizations listening, can take away with them.
Right. So it can start really small, and I think it's probably, I don't think you do any sweeping changes that are easy overnight. Identifying anyone that might not be truly happy in what they're doing, right? So there's easy indicators for that. Are they withdrawn? Are they, irrational or not routine on certain things? Are things late? Are they late? Are you having absentee issues? Or are there 2 people who don't seem to get along and avoid each other? Any of these small indicators are really good opportunities to say, let's go to lunch. let's have a coffee together. Let's sit, I really want to check in with you on your program and understand what's going on and how I can help and what your thoughts are about it.
And not always start with just, I see that you're not engaged.
Right, you look like you're struggling.
Because that might not get you the results you
Well,
want.
and it's not going to tell you what their problem is, right? That the conversation can't be about an individual, because I've noticed, even with this team, it's really rare that one person is experiencing one thing, right? Like, that's how it feels to them. But if you really draw it out and you look at it and how it plays and how it impacts at a larger dynamic, what one person is feeling, an entire team is most likely feeling to differing degrees, which means there's probably people who are struggling even harder and you just don't have that awareness into it. So everything has to be treated as not an individual complaint, right? It is an individual concern, but it will give you a lot more information if you look at it in the larger structure.
And that insight and awareness has been, and your passion has been instrumental for our teams and for building out a division that truly has to be dynamic and super agile. So thank you. It's exciting to watch. It's exciting to hear. And we've loved having you.
Thank you. It's a deep pleasure. I mean, when it's done right and it's invested in well, you get to see it on a daily basis. The rewards come back in spades. Watching people work together well, watching people come in and be happy where they are, watching people truly engaged and focused and being able to deliver at a high level to a customer. There's nothing else you could want out of program management.
Right. And it's real. It's not philosophy here. So thanks. And thanks for taking your time with us today. And thank you for spending a few minutes with us. For more trends and insights, subscribe now and join us next time for another episode of Tech Connect Talks That Transform.